The young man spoke in an extremely relaxed tone. Then, without even looking at the angry middle-aged man, he walked towards Xiao Yan and said with a smile, "My name is Xiao Hao. I was ordered by the elder of Xiao City to bring you to Xiao City. Can I leave now?" Xiao Yan glanced at the middle-aged man who had a gloomy expression on his face and said to Xiao Hao with a smile, "Of course. Thank you for your trouble." After saying that, Xiao Yan swaggered away with Xiao Hao under the dumbfounded gazes of the people in the hall. The beautiful woman behind the middle-aged man glanced at Xiao Yan curiously, turned around, and was about to leave as well. Wait a moment. When the two passed by the middle-aged man, the latter suddenly let out a furious roar. After suppressing the anger in his chest, the middle-aged man turned around and forced a smile onto his face. He looked at Xiao Hao and said, "Young Master Xiao Hao, you saw it too. How did this Xiao Yan treat the Xiao clan's iron guards? He didn't put the Xiao clan in his eyes at all. I remember that the old ancestor had set a rule that anyone who offends the Xiao clan's authority will be punished. You won't forget that, right?" The young man smiled lightly when he heard this. He looked at the middle-aged man and said, "The Xiao City Lord is being too serious." The young man naturally wouldn't dare to forget the rules set by the old ancestor. However, the rules didn't say that the disciples of the family were not allowed to fight with each other. The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows after hearing this. He looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing beside Xiao Hao, and said with a frown, "Could he be a disciple of the Xiao clan? Impossible. I remember all the outstanding disciples of the families that are worthy of the attention of the elders of Xiao City. I have never seen him before." Before Xiao Hao could say anything, Xiao Yan had already opened his mouth. "Although my surname is Xiao, I am not a disciple of the Xiao clan. I am a disciple of the Xiao clan of Fighting Qi Continent." When they heard Xiao Yan's words, the young man and the girl beside him frowned slightly. They couldn't help but look at Xiao Yan. The latter's expression was indifferent, and he didn't look at the two of them. Fighting Qi Continent? The middle-aged man was startled when he heard this. After that, he furrowed his brows and looked at Xiao Yan. Could it be the continent where the Xiao clan sent their souls into 1,000,000 years ago? Didn't they say that the Xiao clan has declined? How could there be a new fighting monarch that can advance? After that, he let out a cold snort and looked at Xiao Hao with a smile. "Young Master Xiao Hao," he said. "You heard it too, right? This guy doesn't recognize him as a disciple of the Xiao clan in the Great World." However, it was also a good thing. The Xiao clan of the Great World. You can't just casually join the Xiao clan from the lower realm. Today, I will let you know the dignity of a superfamily. It's not something that any petty person can casually insult. Seeing that the middle-aged man was about to make a move, Xiao Hao frowned and raised his hand to speak in a deep voice. "Wait a moment, Xiao City Lord. No matter what, Xiao Yan was personally welcomed by the elders of Xiao City, my sister and I. We will talk about everything after the elders have met." Hearing the words elder of Xiao City, the middle-aged man gritted his teeth. He held back his desire to fight, then looked at Xiao Hao and said in a cold voice, "If that's the case, for the sake of young Master Xiao, let him go. After arriving at Xiao City, I hope that young master can honestly report this to the elders. If the elders want to punish this Xiao Yan for everything he did in our city, I hope you can hand it over to me, otherwise. If the news of what happened here were to spread, not only would it damage the reputation of Yuanyi City, it would also harm the reputation of Yuanyi City. It will also bring disgrace to the Xiao clan." Xiao Hao nodded his head when he heard this. He glanced at Xiao Yan, then he and the girl beside him took the lead and left. Xiao Yan looked at the middle-aged man with a cold smile and followed him without hesitation. "Brat, if the elders hand you over to me, I will make you regret coming to Tiancang Mansion." Just as the middle-aged man sent the three of them out with a gloomy face, Xiao Hao, who was walking in front, suddenly turned around and looked at the middle-aged man. He said with a smile that was not a smile, "By the way, Xiao City Lord, before I came here, the great elder told me that he wanted me to take a look at the management of Yuanyi City. Not bad, but take good care of your son. Don't do anything that will harm the reputation of Xiao clan. Or else, hee. Many of the supreme elders in Desolate City are looking forward to their descendants taking your position." The young man chuckled and the three of them quickly left the place. What? When he heard what Xiao Hao said just now, Desolate Wanqing instantly felt cold sweat trickling down his back. His gloomy expression turned incomparably ugly. He stared blankly at the disappearing figures of Xiao Yan and the other two. Immediately, he turned to Tiancang and said furiously, "Little bastard, to be honest, what did you do?" Tiancang's face turned incomparably pale when he heard what Xiao Hao said. When he heard Desolate Wanqing's angry question, he instantly panicked and opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. "Wang Chong, tell me." Desolate Wanqing glared at Tiancang with disappointment in his eyes. He suddenly looked at Wang Chong, who was standing not far away with a panicked expression on his face. He spoke in a deep voice. He knew the identity of Xiao Hao very well, the grandson of the great elder of Xiao City. In the entire generation of Xiao clan, except for Xiao Yi, who had gone to the Yunluo Academy to cultivate, Xiao Hao was the most important person in this generation. He was the young man with the strongest backing, the old patriarch of Xiao clan who had been in closed-door cultivation for a long time. Currently, the great elder of the Xiao clan held almost all the power in his hands. Even as the city lord, Xiao Wanqing didn't dare to offend Xiao Hao. Otherwise, his life would come to an end after hearing the great elder's words. It was precisely because of this that Xiao Wanqing was still brooding over Xiao Hao's hidden threat. The reason why he was able to become the city lord of Yuanyi City was because of the ancestor of his bloodline, Desolate Yuanyi, tens of thousands of years ago. In addition, in his generation, Xiao Wanqing's strength could be considered decent. That was why he was conferred the position of city lord. However, just like what Tiancang had said, the descendants of many elders in Desolate City had already grown. Some of the younger generations were no weaker than him. If the position of city lord was taken away, in 100 years' time, their bloodline would also face the situation of leaving the Taiqing mansion. Upon hearing Xiao Wanqing calling him, Wang Chong's face instantly turned pale. He looked at Tiancang in panic, but the latter's face was also pale and didn't even look at him. Currently, the order of the Xiao clan's iron guards had been maintained by Xiao Wanqing. The wounded were carried out of the hall. The crowd who were watching the show were also evacuated. Some of the iron guards stood beside the transportation array, and organized the people to leave in an orderly manner. When Wang Chong saw this, he let out a bitter sigh in his heart. Just as he was about to speak, Tiancang suddenly turned his head to look at the former. When he saw a trace of killing intent flashing across Tiancang's eyes, Wang Chong's mouth immediately became filled with bitterness. A sense of powerlessness instantly emerged from the bottom of his heart. After a long time, his voice trembled as he told the whole story. Of course, it didn't involve Tiancang. Upon hearing Wang Chong's words, Xiao Wanqing was instantly enraged. He looked at the bustling crowds in the hall and held back his anger. He looked coldly at Wang Chong, then at Tiancang, who had unconsciously relaxed, and said in a cold voice, "You little bastard, you can't escape responsibility for this matter." The hairs on Tiancang's body instantly stood up when he heard what Wang Chong said. He stammered for a moment, not knowing what to say. "Wang Chong, as the captain of the Iron Guards, you actually did such a thing. Are you trying to tarnish the reputation of the Xiao clan? You have worked under me for so many years. You should know what I am capable of." Looking at Wang Chong's pale face, Xiao Wanqing harumphed coldly, then looked at Tiancang and said, "And you? From now on, you are not allowed to take another step into this place. If I am removed from my position as an elder of Xiao City, all of you won't be any better." He threw down a sentence angrily. Xiao Wanqing was burning with rage in his heart. With a flick of his sleeve, he turned around and left the hall. Tiancang's legs went limp when he saw Xiao Wanqing leave, and he almost fell to the ground. He glanced at Wang Chong with a guilty expression before hastily leaving the hall. Wang Chong's face turned deathly pale and his legs trembled. Ignoring the gazes of the others, he sat down on the ground. His heart was filled with bitterness and regret. But he also knew that being beaten half to death was already the best outcome. If he had told Tiancang about it, Xiao Wanqing would have punished him in order to protect his son. He would have even asked him to die. Xiao Yan and the others naturally didn't know what was going on in the main hall, so they followed Xiao Hao. Xiao Ling and her sister came to an open area and saw Xiao Yan's puzzled expression. Xiao Hao smiled gently and took out a black bead that was engraved with strange patterns. He said, "There is a powerful formation in Desolate City. Ordinary transportation array can only be transported 1,000 miles away from Xiao City. This teleportation bead, it was specially created by a formation master of Xiao clan. It was compatible with the formation in the city. With this, we can reach the Xiao city directly. Quote, 2 inches teleportation bead? Xiao Yan curiously looked at the small black bead in Xiao Hao's hand. He couldn't help but feel surprised. This thing was so powerful, it actually had the effect of replacing the transportation array. This is just compressing the transportation array into a specific bead. It's simple and fast. The biggest advantage is that it can interact with a specific transportation array. With this, the people in the transportation array will be able to know the location of the person who possesses this bead. Xiao Ling had a slender figure. Her red tight suit outlined her perfect body. Seeing Xiao Yan's curious expression, she smiled and said. Xiao Hao held the teleportation formation in his hand and poured some Origin Monarch cheese into it. In an instant, the strange profound patterns on the surface of the black pearls suddenly burst out with a dazzling light. Immediately, a huge circular formation with a radius of about 3 meters was projected from within. After wrapping around Xiao Yan and the other two, the circular formation flashed with a white light, and in the next moment, the 3 of them had already disappeared. When the light returned to his eyes, Xiao Yan hurriedly opened his eyes. He was in a deep and serene ancient hall, and the place where he and the other 2 appeared was a huge transportation array with mysterious patterns engraved on it. Greetings, young master. While Xiao Yan was looking around the majestic ancient hall, a vigorous voice suddenly sounded. Xiao Yan looked forward and sucked in a breath of cold air. Almost 20 black armored guards had appeared out of nowhere and saw them. Xiao Hao and Xiao Ling, the leader of the group, was a middle-aged man with a big beard. He was kneeling on one knee and his voice was loud and clear. The 20 armored guards also knelt on one knee and said in unison, "Greetings to the 2 young master." Everyone's voice was loud and clear, full of confidence. When they clearly saw the strength of the group, even Xiao Yan, who had a rough estimation of the Xiao clan's strength, was shocked in his heart at this moment. 20 people, all of them had reached the Emperor cultivation. Under the detection of Xiao Yan's soul force, the bearded middle-aged man who led the group was only slightly weaker than Xiao Wang. After Xiao Hao responded, the bearded middle-aged man raised his head. When he saw Xiao Yan behind Xiao Hao and Xiao Ling, his face immediately became serious, and he said with caution, "May I ask the 2 young master, who is he?" Xiao Hao flipped his palm and a transparent bead appeared in his hand. He handed it to the middle-aged man in front of him and said with a smile, "The Great Elder wants me and my sister to go to Yuanyu City to welcome this man. This is the Great Elder's spiritual will." The bearded middle-aged man glanced at Xiao Yan after hearing this. He didn't let the 3 of them go because of Xiao Hao's identity. He took the transparent bead and sent a trace of his will into the bead in his hand. After a long while, the bearded middle-aged man raised his head and took a closer look at Xiao Yan. He returned the transparent bead to Xiao Hao. After that, he slightly tilted his body and cupped his hands towards the 3 of them. "Since it's the Great Elder's words, I won't say anything else." Xiao Hao hastily returned the salute. "Thank you, Commander Xiao Pa." Xiao Pa nodded with a dark face. He nodded and said, "It's my duty. This is the Xiao city. I can't slack off. There's no need to trouble me. I hope the 2 of you can forgive me." Even Xiao Hao and his sister didn't dare to look down on this bearded commander, even though the latter was only in charge of the transportation array in the ancient hall. In terms of status, he was more than twice as high as the city lord of Yuanyi City, Desolate Wanqing. Desolate Pa was in charge of the elder seat of Xiao City, while Desolate Wanqing was in charge. Without the orders of the elders of Xiao City, he wouldn't even dare to take a step forward in Xiao City. After coming out of Ancient Hall, a wide path led straight to an imposing grand hall in the distance. On both sides of the path, towering ancient trees stood tall. Every 10 steps or so, they would appear in a forest of trees. An iron guard from the Xiao clan stood with a solemn expression, holding a weapon in his hand. That teleportation bead was specially given to me by my grandfather this time. It can be directly transported to the ancient hall. There are a total of 4 such ancient hall in Desolate City. Every one of them is heavily guarded. The other teleportation beads can only be used to teleport to the ordinary teleportation formation in Xiao City. It seems like my grandfather is quite interested in you. While walking on the main road, Xiao Hao looked at Xiao Yan and said in a low voice. Seeing Xiao Yan smile, Xiao Hao thought for a while and said, "After you broke through to the Fighting Qi continent, why didn't you come directly to the Xiao clan?" There should be a station for Xiao clan in the new sovereign world. Xiao Yan shook his head and said, I heard from Sect Master Xiao Wang of Purple Radiance Sect in Spirit Heaven Mansion that there hasn't been a single fighting monarch in Fighting Qi continent for more than 20,000 years. Many years ago, the station was removed. Xiao Ling, who was walking beside Xiao Hao, blinked her beautiful eyes and said, Where did you go? Ordinary fighting monarchies have just arrived here, but they are the weakest existences. You can actually live safely until now. After saying that, Xiao Ling stuck out her tongue. When Xiao Hao heard her, he smiled awkwardly and said, My younger sister is straightforward. Don't mind her. When Xiao Yan heard her, he laughed lightly and said, In the new Emperor world, I joined the Yunluo Academy with my companions. After that, I accepted the trial of the Yunluo Academy and was transported to the forest domain. I stumbled all the way here. Xiao Hao nodded and said with a smile, My brother also joined the Yunluo Academy 7 or 8 years ago. I heard that he is now a member of the realm in Valley. I just don't know how strong he is. Xiao Ling interrupted. Brother Xiao Yi has already reached the Emperor realm before he left. I guess he has at least reached the Monarch Emperor now. Xiao Ling's face was full of admiration when she mentioned her big brother. Her beautiful eyes were filled with extraordinary splendor. When big brother Xiao Yi took the test back then, he almost reached the holy rank trial of the Yunluo Academy. After entering the academy, with big brother's strength, he would naturally be able to easily show his outstanding talent. In just over a year, he entered the inner courtyard. 2 years later, he entered the realm in Valley and became the core student of the Yunluo Academy. Xiao Hao said softly, then looked at Xiao Yan and said, What level has your trial reached? Since he came from the lower realm, his level should not be low. Xiao Yan laughed and said slowly, My luck is pretty good. I have reached the holy rank trial. Holy rank trial? Hearing Xiao Yan's soft words, even Xiao Hao and his sister, who were used to seeing shocking scenes, could not help but be shocked. They looked at Xiao Yan with less contempt. He is even stronger than Xiao Yi. Xiao Ling's beautiful eyes were wide open. She looked at Xiao Yan with disbelief. It seems like if you go to the Yunluo Academy and meet Big Bro, something interesting might happen. Xiao Hao recovered from his shock and said with a smile on his face. But why didn't you join any other academy? Otherwise, I would have been able to see the battle between you and big brother Xiao Yi. Xiao Ling also smiled when she heard Xiao Hao's words. After that, she said with regret. Why? Xiao Yan frowned slightly and looked at Xiao Ling. Actually, the Yunluo Academy is not the strongest out of the 4 big academies in the star field. There were even a few times where they won the last place in the Great Academies competition. Before this, Big Brother wanted to join the strongest Star Sky Academy, but in the end, the son of the patriarch of one of the 4 big families in the star field, the Kang family, had joined the competition ahead of time. The Xiao clan and the Kang family had never been on good terms with each other. Xiao Yi naturally wouldn't be in the same academy as him. After thinking for a while, therefore, he decided to join the Yunluo Academy and participate in the competition in the future. If his brother could defeat the people of the Kang family, it would mean even more. The descendants of the Xiao clan are stronger than the people of the Kang family. After listening to Xiao Hao's words, Xiao Yan couldn't help but nod his head. It seemed like that Xiao Yi was also a very proud person. Most importantly, after joining the Yunluo Academy, if he wanted to defeat his opponent in the Star Sky Academy, he would have to put in more effort and persistence. Thinking of this, for the first time, Xiao Yan no longer thought of meeting his family as an excuse to come to the Yunluo Academy as soon as possible. Instead, he used the identity of a student. 2 inches by the way, since the Fighting Qi continent hasn't broken through to the Fighting Monarch in more than 20,000 years, how did you do it? Also, what's the reason why you didn't break through to the Fighting Monarch realm? Xiao Ling pouted. She suddenly looked at Xiao Yan curiously, her expression full of doubt. Ling don't ask anymore. Grandpa will naturally ask clearly about this kind of thing. Besides, it's not like knowing about this kind of thing is of any use to us. Furthermore, Brother Xiao Yan can break through the shackles and break through to the Fighting Monarch. Of course, he used an extraordinary method. Am I right? Without waiting for Xiao Yan to speak, Xiao Hao spoke with a stern voice. Then, he looked at Xiao Yan and said with a smile. Xiao Yan was startled for a moment. When he saw Xiao Hao's calm gaze, he gently smiled and nodded without saying anything. What is it? You are so petty. Xiao Ling lightly snorted and did not ask anymore. After about half an incense stick of time, the three of them finally arrived outside this majestic and grand hall. Suddenly, a primitive qi rushed towards Xiao Yan from the ancient era, causing him to be startled. His legs almost couldn't stand straight. Just as his mind was in a daze. His chest suddenly felt hot, followed by a faintly discernible qi that quickly covered his entire body. The desolate qi that came from the hall could no longer affect Xiao Yan. Xiao Hao and his sister were clearly familiar with this qi. Immediately, their qi sunk into their dantian. The origin monarch qi crazily circulated within their bodies, using an ingenious force to neutralize the deterrence of the desolate qi. Xiao Hao, who had regained his senses, had a flash in his eyes. He then looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing beside him. When he saw Xiao Yan, he instantly recovered from the shock. Not only was he shocked, he also looked at Xiao Yan with a serious expression. It seemed like this man from the Xiao clan who came from the lower realm had some abilities. Unlike what some of the elders in the family had said, the fighting monarch of lower realm hadn't reached the monarch emperor yet. They were all trash. After regaining his senses, Xiao Yan's eyes quickly swept across his chest. The feeling just now should be that the prestige power spell had woken up from its slumber. Thinking of this, although Xiao Yan was happy, more importantly, he had a headache. The prestige power spell had woken up. This meant that he didn't need to use his soul power to resist the suppression of the qi. When the prestige power spell sensed this powerful suppression, it immediately became silent. Hong long, but at the same time, it also meant that the bitter days of his soul would come. Enduring the intense pain that came from the depths of his soul, Xiao Yan looked around. The doors of the huge hall were tightly shut, although there were no guards around. With his extraordinary soul power, he could still faintly sense several long and imposing auras. These auras gave him the feeling that they were not inferior to Xiao Wang at all. As expected of one of the four major families in the star field. This formation is truly frightening. Xiao Yan was amazed by the Xiao clan's strength. This was only a part of what he had discovered by chance. He estimated that there were more of them that he hadn't discovered, but they were also stronger. The Great Elder is in the Supreme Purity Palace. Allow me to report to him. When they arrived outside the huge palace, Xiao Hao's expression immediately became solemn. He changed the way he addressed the Great Elder to the Great Elder. After that, he quickly walked to the main entrance of the palace and said respectfully, "Under the orders of the Great Elder, Xiao Hao and Xiao Ling have arrived here with the fighting monarch of lower realm." Not long after he finished speaking, the huge doors of the hall slowly opened. It was as if a heavenly gate that led to the ancient era had been opened. The deep and serene interior of the hall slowly appeared in front of them. Shua! After the door was completely opened, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the door. When Xiao Hao saw the person who had come, he hurriedly said respectfully, "Xiao Hao greets the deacon." Xiao Yan looked up and saw that the person was actually a woman in black. The woman had silver hair, and her black clothes had a tall mouth. Most of her face was covered, and only her eyes were exposed. She looked indifferently at Xiao Yan, who was beside Xiao Ling, and slowly nodded. His cold voice was like ice that would never melt, and he said, "Xiao Wang is talking about this little guy." The Great Elder had already said that he would let this little guy come in by himself. "All of you can leave now." As he spoke, he turned around and walked towards the interior of the hall. When Xiao Hao saw this, he answered respectfully. After that, he gave Xiao Yan a look. Xiao Yan could clearly hear what the girl said, so he immediately walked forward. "This is the deacon of Xiao clan. He is very powerful and belongs to the strongest combat strength of Xiao clan. You have to pay attention to every word and action of his. Don't offend him." When he passed by Xiao Hao, the former's voice was as soft as a mosquito's. Xiao Yan frowned when he heard this. He calmly nodded his head. He followed the silver-haired woman into the hall. After Xiao Yan entered, the doors slowly closed. He cut off Xiao Hao and his sister's line of sight and shook his head. Xiao Hao nodded at Xiao Ling, and the two of them bowed respectfully to the surroundings of the hall. After that, they left the place. Xiao Yan walked into the deep and serene hall. It was incomparably spacious inside. Numerous black pillars with mysterious patterns were arranged in the hall. Numerous jade pearls were embedded in the dome of the hall. The light of the jade pearls sparkled, causing the entire hall to be in a quiet and bright environment. Xiao Yan followed the girl and walked forward. He looked around curiously. The mysterious patterns carved on the black pillars intrigued him. Don't wander around. The formation in the hall is interconnected. One wrong step and you will die. The girl who was walking in front suddenly said coldly. There was no emotion in her voice. Xiao Yan couldn't help but shiver when he heard this. He hurriedly held his breath and concentrated. He followed the woman closely. There seemed to be a strange formation on the way. After a while, he walked down. The scenery around him didn't change at all. Xiao Yan became more and more shocked as he walked. Looking from the outside, this hall wasn't that big. After walking for half a day, it seemed like he had walked for dozens of miles. He had yet to reach the end. After walking for a while, a bronze ancient hall suddenly appeared in front of them. This palace looked like an ancient ferocious beast that was coiled on the ground. At a glance, it made one's soul tremble, but without that intimidating aura, it looked even more peaceful. When she was a few dozen meters away from ancient hall, the woman stopped in her tracks. When Xiao Yan saw this, he immediately stopped as well. Great Elder, Xiao Yan has arrived. The girl stood up straight and faced the ancient hall. Her voice was emotionless. Thank you for your hard work, Xiao Yan. You can come in by yourself. While the girl was talking to the ancient hall, Xiao Yan turned around and looked at her. The door of the great hall was only a few miles away from him. He was secretly shocked by what he saw. An old and peaceful voice suddenly came from the ancient hall. It was the voice of an old man, who suddenly called Xiao Yan's name. Xiao Yan was startled for a moment, then he looked at the ancient hall. After that, he lifted his leg and slowly walked forward. When he arrived at the entrance of the ancient hall, Xiao Yan stretched out his hand. Just as he was about to push open the bronze door, suddenly, mystic light flashed on the black pillars on both sides of the door. Two black beams of light rushed in front of Xiao Yan in an instant. The space that the black rays of light passed through trembled slightly, emitting a burning feeling. Xiao Yan's expression changed drastically when he sensed the power contained within the black light. It was already too late for him to dodge. He immediately moved his heart. The crimson gold flame had suddenly appeared and completely wrapped around his body. Kai! Black light flowed. The black light suddenly stopped a couple of inches away from Xiao Yan's body. After which, it slowly scattered. Before Xiao Yan could let out a sigh of relief, the bronze door of ancient hall had already slowly opened. Isn't it just a meeting? It's really tiring to create such a mysterious scene. After muttering to himself, the crimson gold flame trembled and also disappeared from the surface of his body. Xiao Yan tidied his clothes, took a deep breath, and walked in with large strides. The fragrance of sandalwood lingered in the ancient hall, and the layout was simple and not lacking in atmosphere. The layout was magnificent. Mysterious patterns were engraved on the walls. Several black dragon pillars stood in the middle of the ancient hall. The huge dragon on them raised its head and looked at the sky. It seemed like it was going to soar into the sky. Around the hall, nearly 100 seats were arranged in a row at the end of the ancient hall. On the white jade steps was a huge throne, with the head of the throne at the bottom. A large seat was placed at the head of many seats, facing the door. Xiao Yan, who had entered the ancient hall, glanced at the ancient hall from the corner of his eye and then looked ahead. Under the huge throne, there was a thin old man sitting leisurely on the throne. The old man was wearing a green robe and had a few strands of beard. He looked like a transcendent being. His eyes were slightly narrowed as he looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing in front of him. The old man just sat there and his qi rushed towards Xiao Yan like a mountain. Xiao Yan was startled and his face turned extremely pale. Even with the prestige power spell, there was still a huge pressure pressing down on him. This old man was definitely stronger than anyone he had seen before. Naturally, Elder Yi and Nether Imperial Consort Satsuma were not among them. You are Xiao Yan, a descendant of the Xiao clan who had broken through to the Fighting Qi continent? After a while, the old man retracted his boundless qi. When he saw Xiao Yan's pale face holding on, a trace of surprise flashed across his face. Then, he asked with a smile. Although his voice was soft, it was as if Xiao Yan had heard a thunderous sound, causing his heart to tremble. He didn't dare to have any distracting thoughts in his heart. After adjusting his mood, Xiao Yan let out a breath. He looked at the old man and said in a low voice. Xiao Yan of the Xiao clan of Fighting Qi continent greets the great elder. After saying that, he clasped his hands together and bowed deeply to the old man. A bright light flashed across the old man's eyes when he heard that. After that, he said with a smile, the Xiao clan of Fighting Qi Continent is a branch of the Xiao clan in the Great World. We are all members of the Xiao clan, so why should we talk about it? The old man smiled helplessly when he saw Xiao Yan remain silent. Then, he tapped the armrest of the chair with his finger. He looked at Xiao Yan and said in a solemn voice, "We'll talk about this later. Tell me first, the reason why Fighting Qi Continent hasn't broken through to the Fighting Monarch realm in 10,000 years. Xiao Yan pondered for a moment. Without hiding anything, he told the old man everything about 9 Nether Monarchs bug in the Fighting Monarch realm. Of course, the last thing he said was that the 9 profound Golden Thunder and the Xiao Yi had merged into one. He only said that the last few people would try their best to kill 9 Nether Monarchs bug. What? A Fighting Monarch level insect? After hearing Xiao Yan's words, the old man's calm expression changed, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They had thought of all kinds of scenarios, but they had never thought that a tiny insect could block the advancement of dozens of fighting monarchies. No, that's not right. It's impossible for other creatures to appear in that spatial zone. That 9 Nether Monarchs bug is definitely not a natural being. While sighing, the old man suddenly frowned. He looked at Xiao Yan and spoke coldly. Seeing Xiao Yan's calm expression, the old man's frown gradually eased up. He lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then finally raised his head to look at Xiao Yan. He said word by word, "It seems that 9 Nether Monarchs bug's appearance has offended the great world." He let out a long sigh and met Xiao Yan's puzzled gaze. The old man smiled bitterly and said, "You should have heard about it from Xiao Wang. 1,000,000 years ago, during the chaos of the great world, many families of the great world. All the sects had invested their souls into the Fighting Qi Continent, so I guess that 9 Nether Monarchs bug is the soul body that some family of the great world had sent down to the Fighting Qi Continent. After floating in the Fighting Monarch for 1,000,000 years, there was a sudden change. He became 9 Nether Monarchs bug just now." Xiao Yan's heart shook when he heard this. After that, he furrowed his brows and said, "Is there a family like 9 Nether Monarchs bug in this great world?" A strange soul body had actually caused the Fighting Qi Continent to have a lot of fighting monarchs to stay at the last step. It had almost caused the Fighting Qi Continent to completely decline. It was not an exaggeration to say that 9 Nether Monarchs bug was the enemy of the entire Fighting Qi Continent. If possible, Xiao Yan would like to find this family to discuss things with them when his strength improved in the future. The old man closed his eyes and thought for a while, then slowly shook his head and said, "According to what I have seen and heard over the years, I have never heard of 9 Nether Monarchs bug. However, there are a lot of beasts in the spirit domain. Perhaps there might be." After saying that, the old man looked at Xiao Yan and said with a strange look in his eyes, "When you came in just now, yes." Xiao Yan frowned and looked at the smiling expression of the old man. He nodded his head probingly and said, "That's right, it's the Chaos Great Monarch Flame. When I was in the lower realm, I was fortunate enough to collect some strange flames. After I came to the Great World, I accidentally evolved into a Chaos Great Monarch Flame." When the old man heard this, he was stunned. He smiled and nodded, saying, "That's right. You're really lucky, little fellow. Even if an ordinary person possesses great strength, they won't be able to obtain the Monarch Flame without that kind of luck. Although this Chaos Great Monarch Flame is ranked at the bottom of the Monarch Flame ranking, if it's used appropriately, it can be considered a killing technique." After that, the old man suddenly stood up and came to Xiao Yan's side. He stroked his long beard and said with a mysterious smile, "Speaking of Monarch Flame, my Xiao clan also has one. Do you want to see it?" Xiao Yan was shocked at first, but he calmed down after hearing what the old man said. With the formidable strength of the Xiao clan, it was reasonable for them to obtain a Monarch Flame. Xiao Yan nodded his head. After that, he slowly raised his hand and drew a circle in the air. In the next moment, a transparent mirror suddenly appeared in the space in front of him. In the mirror, there was a ball of golden flame burning fiercely. Xiao Yan fixed his eyes on it. Even though it was just a projection, this ball of golden flame still gave people a sense of fear, as if the temperature of ancient hall had increased by a lot. The golden flame was burning slowly. In Xiao Yan's eyes, the flame gradually turned into the shape of a little phoenix. The 2 flaming wings were flapping gently, and the neck was raised high. as if it was roaring towards the sky. This ball of flame gave Xiao Yan a feeling that it was extremely hot. He had a feeling that the power of his Chaos Great Monarch Flame and the 3000 Lightning Monarch Flame combined into a flame was not even comparable to this Phoenix's flame. This flame is called the Golden Emperor Heavenly Phoenix Flame. It is ranked 22nd on the Monarch Flame. 300 years ago, the Patriarch of Xiao clan discovered and captured it in battle domain. However, all these years, the Xiao clan could only try to use it. Unfortunately, even the Patriarch of Xiao clan couldn't control it. Why? Looking at the Golden Emperor Heavenly Phoenix Flame in the sky, Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel curious. With the heaven-defying strength of the Patriarch, how could he not subdue a Monarch Flame ranked 21st? The Monarch Flame is a sacred item. How can a sacred item be controlled so easily? You have to remember that every sacred item isn't something you can fully control, even if the Golden Emperor Heavenly Phoenix Flame is only a part of the sacred item. The Great Elder stood beside Xiao Yan, looking at the Golden Emperor Phoenix Heavenly Flame, and could only let out a long sigh. Why is there a stone in this flame's Emperor Fire Source? Xiao Yan, who was carefully looking at the Golden Emperor Phoenix Heavenly Flame, was stunned. He saw the belly of the little golden phoenix, which was roaring towards the sky. There was a wisp of pure golden flame in this wisp of golden flame. In this wisp of golden flame, an oval-shaped purple rock was quietly sitting inside. Even though it was said that the temperature of the Monarch Flame was the highest among all of the Emperor Fire Source, this rock was still safe and sound. This was a long time ago. After the founder of the Xiao clan, the old ancestor Xiao Tiancang, reached a level that surpassed the saint level, he roamed the various regions. He found it by chance in the star sky, but the old ancestor had spent his entire life trying to figure out what it was. However, based on the old man's senses, he felt that this thing was definitely not simple. In the end, the old ancestor finally sensed something. He guessed that it contained signs of life. After the old ancestor disappeared, this spirit stone was left in the Xiao clan, and it hadn't moved for 1,000,000 years. Until more than 300 years ago, when the current clan chief brought back the Golden Emperor Phoenix Heavenly Flame. This spirit stone suddenly entered and never came out again. The clan chief's control over the Golden Emperor Phoenix Heaven Flame also instantly weakened. After nagging for a long time, the Great Elder seemed to have thought of something and said, when the old ancestor sensed that there were signs of life in this spirit stone, he suddenly became interested and bestowed this spirit stone with the name Xiao Tianye. Quote, 2 inches Xiao Tianye? Upon hearing the Grand Elder's words, Xiao Yan was slightly taken aback. He took a closer look at the Golden Emperor Phoenix Heavenly Flame, and a layer of crimson gold flames gradually appeared in his eyes, allowing him to see it even more clearly. The surface of the purple jade seemed to be wrapped in fluorescent light, isolating the flames within the Golden Emperor Phoenix Heavenly Flame's fire source. On the outside, the fluorescent light wrapped around the surrounding flames, causing them to slowly pulsate. It was as if the Golden Emperor Phoenix Heaven Flame was using the Emperor Fire Source to nourish this spirit stone. Looking at this spirit stone, a name that had been unfamiliar to Xiao Yan for a long time suddenly appeared in his mind. Sun Wukong? Thinking of this, Xiao Yan could not help but laugh. However, he still looked at this spirit stone seriously. He had experienced many things in the lower realm, so he was not surprised that there were signs of life in a stone. He frowned and asked curiously, since there are signs of life in it, when can this Xiao Tianye come out? The Great Elder said with a bitter smile. How can we know something that even the old ancestor doesn't know? Now that this spirit stone has completely entered the interior of the Golden Emperor Phoenix Heavenly Flame, even if we want to discard it, we can't bear to part with the Monarch Flame. We can only let him stay inside and talk about it in the future. Xiao Yan nodded his head. After that, he couldn't help but admire the old ancestor of Xiao clan in his heart. It wasn't certain whether the thing inside the stone was a human or not, but it had actually given him a human name. However, if that Xiao Tianye really jumped out from the rock, his strength wouldn't be low. Perhaps, he would become a trump card of Xiao clan in the future. With a wave of his hand, the image of the Golden Emperor Phoenix Heavenly Flame in front of the two disappeared. The Great Elder then shifted his gaze to Xiao Yan. He spoke slowly. Do you know why the old ancestor gave that spirit stone to Xiao Tianye? Without waiting for Xiao Yan's answer, the Great Elder muttered to himself, that's because when the old ancestor was still alive, He used a single word to name his descendants. When the old ancestor picked up the spirit stone, the Xiao clan was established not long ago. Before the old ancestor disappeared, tens of thousands of years had passed. Because the old ancestor loved that spirit stone, he placed the words he took for his 3 sons on the spirit stone. The 3 sons of the old ancestor are all extremely talented. They had all reached the level of the supreme saint. It was also at this moment that the Xiao clan has reached its peak. What they will encounter next. It was the Great War millions of years ago that you knew about. At that time, the old ancestor had already disappeared, although the Xiao clan's strength had reached its peak. But that war was too tragic. The ancient soul demon was in chaos. The Nether Domain's domain lord had brought his wife and son to lead the army of Nether Domain to sweep across all the domains. There was also the chaos of the beast race in the spirit domain, as well as the fall of the barbarian god. The 10 great barbarian generals under his command were vying for power, causing the entire great world to be filled with a foul atmosphere. The flames of war are flying everywhere. Even someone as strong as the Xiao clan can only seek survival in the crevice. After that, the 2 mighty beings of the battle domain fought a life and death battle. After opening the passageway to the fighting Qi continent, the clan immediately realized that this was a good opportunity. In fact, there were fighting monarchies that had ascended in the lower realm long ago. However, the Xiao clan didn't have any branches below, and they didn't have a specific source of fighting monarchies. He had accidentally recruited a fighting monarch of lower realm. Its innate talent had once shocked all 3 seniors. Xiao Yan listened with a solemn expression, and his heart began to stir. The great elder pondered for a moment, then said, "And so?" The 3 seniors discussed for a while, because that spatial zone could only be passed by souls above the heavenly sovereign. The Xiao clan didn't dare to take the risk, and they decided to directly throw themselves into the saint's soul body. The stronger the soul body was, the greater the fighting monarch's potential would be in the future. Therefore, among the 3 seniors, the most talented one was the 2nd son of the old ancestor. Senior Xiao Tiancang, who had almost reached the peak of the saint realm, was willing to give up his physical body and the strength that he had painstakingly cultivated. For the sake of the Xiao clan, he had resolutely entered the lower realm with his soul body. Xiao Tiancang. Hearing this domineering name, Xiao Yan's heart skipped a beat. This should be his true ancestor, the Xiao clan who created the fighting Qi continent. His blood should be flowing in his body. Without paying attention to Xiao Yan's expression, the great elder said in a deep voice, 30 years later. A young man came to the Xiao clan in the great world. He was the student of Senior Xiao Tiancang. After Senior came to the fighting Qi continent, he was given birth to a disciple who was on the verge of death. He had always been concerned about the safety of the Xiao clan in the great world, so he had been cultivating with all his might. In just over 20 years, he had already reached the level of fighting monarch. In order to provide the source of fighting monarch for the Xiao clan in the great world, Senior had created the Xiao clan in fighting Qi continent and had left behind a few heirs. He told him about the great world. After that, Senior and his descendants came to the great world in an endless stream, saving the Xiao clan from disaster many times. Finally, the war calmed down. Senior had also reached a height that he hadn't reached in his previous life. Regrettably, he failed at the last moment. The great elder sighed deeply. His tone was filled with regret. Xiao Yan's expression darkened when he heard this, but he quickly recovered. Although Senior Xiao Tiancang was a genius, even if he succeeded in reaching that height, 1,000,000 years had already passed. No matter how powerful the expert was, he could only die. I think you should know that some people from the Xiao clan of the Great World are extremely averse to the people of fighting Qi continent. Do you know why? The great elder suddenly paused and looked at Xiao Yan with a smile that wasn't a smile. Xiao Yan's heart skipped a beat, then he shook his head with an expressionless face. The great elder casually walked into the ancient palace and said in a deep voice, "Fighting monarch of lower realm." Although his talent was extraordinary, his future achievements were limitless. However, when it breaks through to the monarch emperor from the emperor realm, it will have to suffer the pain of the heart flame burning. In the future, every time he advanced to a higher level, the heart flame burning he would experience would become stronger and stronger. In the Xiao clan before this, many of the fighting monarch of lower realms couldn't bear the pain of breaking through to the monarch emperor. He would be turned into ashes, and his body would disappear along with his Tao. Even someone as amazing as Senior Xiao Tiancang died when he broke through to the Saint Realm from the Heavenly Sovereign. And almost died, and it got painful. It was not something that an ordinary person could think of, although the benefits were great. However, the pain was even greater. Furthermore, after breaking through to the Monarch Emperor, the amount of resources needed to break through to the next realm was increasing. In order to break through to the Emperor cultivation, the resources needed could be used to feed an ordinary medium-sized sect. Even if the Xiao clan used all of their family's strength back then. As for the other fighting monarch of lower realms, besides those who died during the advancement, only 2 of them have reached the Heavenly Sovereign. After saying that, the Great Elder gave Xiao Yan a meaningful look. He then said in a low voice, "The heart flame burning will most likely die, but for the Xiao clan. Ordinary Monarch Emperor warriors, or even Emperor cultivation level warriors, are not needed. Therefore, in the 20,000 years that the fighting Qi continent has not had a fighting monarch to break through to the next realm, most of the people in the family suggested that the Xiao clan and Xiao clan in the Great World should break off their relationship. This time, I'm here to meet you because I'm against all objections. So that's how it is. They may all think that I'm a dying man, but that's good too. I, Xiao Yan, have fought for every bit of my strength. I don't expect others to reward me, nor do I need it. Whether it was in fighting Qi continent or in the Great World. Since the Xiao clan of the Great World wants to get rid of our relationship, I can't wait to do so. Furthermore, old ancestor Xiao Tiancang has already gone to the west. In that fighting Qi continent, it can be said that he has no connection with the Xiao clan in the Great World. Xiao Yan said with a cold smile on his face. He didn't care that he was facing the Great Elder of the Xiao clan. A surge of hot blood burst out from his chest and he said word by word. The stubbornness in his words made the Great Elder raise his brows.